Let there be football. Welcome to Move the Chains. I'm your host, Jonathan Bam Rivers. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish have opted out of playing in a bowl game. I'm going to take my ball and go home? Maybe. A lot of respect may be lost for the program. Maybe not. But I think there's so much to talk about from that fallout that we got to get a whole segment on it. Chain Gang Chatter. Going to answer your questions via social media. Are there teams in the NFL that thought that they were going all in and actually made a mistake because they weren't focused on their long-term goals in addition to the short-term goals? So I'll talk about NFL questions in the Chain Gang Chat. Nonsense narrative, people keep saying Patrick Mahomes is regressing as if that's the reason that the Kansas City Chiefs are where they are. And I think that narrative itself is incorrect simply because it's incomplete. Now, last but not least, it's a 6-team race. If you want to find out what I'm talking about, make sure you stay tuned. All that and more right here on Move the Chains, but you know how we do it. Let's kick it off with the opening toss. You know, we live in a world where accountability is key, and many people don't want to be accountable. And I say that not as if nobody's going to make a mistake. Like, nobody's perfect. You're not going to always get the result that you want. But, you know, I read a book a long time ago, and this guy named Charles Swindoll said life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it. So essentially, how you react to a situation is going to determine the potential outcome of the outcome. It's going to determine whether or not you're headed for an upward trajectory or whether or not you start to fall back, regardless of what area in life it is. So I want to show some video here from Notre Dame AD Pete Bavacqua, who's commenting on Notre Dame being left out of the college football playoff by the committee. Go ahead and run it.
We were just led to believe all season long, if we took care of business, we were going to be in. And then to have that shock, that surprise on Sunday in that room with those kids who have given everything that they have since August to put themselves in that position. To be told week in and week out that you're in that position, provided you win. And we certainly won when you think about these last 10 weeks.
Before I actually break down that video and get into my full thought on this whole situation, I want you to pay attention to the media rights deal that Notre Dame has with NBC and Peacock. You've got exclusive rights with the stations and the streaming services since 1991. And this deal is running through 29, and it'll probably be an extension if something drastic changes. Peacock streams exclusive home football games for Notre Dame. Okay, and there's more because this thing is very, very diverse and very complex in its relationship. The extension boosts the annual football payment. You get $50 million, right? Plus ACC revenue for other sports. And I think that's another key that people need to pay attention to. And this deal is just unique because Notre Dame owns its own media rights, unlike conference teams. So I appreciate that graphic in the South. So let me ask you this question first of all. When you're an independent contractor and you run your own business and you're in a situation to where you make the rules, you have all the say-so, you don't have to abide by anybody else's rules, that's freedom to you. So then are you in a position to be upset if you're not able to take advantage of some of the benefits and become a beneficiary of that organization's benefits when you're independent? Right? If you're choosing to be on your own and now you're complaining that the company is not treating you like one of their own, do you have a right to be upset? And I think that's what we have here with Notre Dame. And I want to go back to Pete Bavacqua, the athletic director, when he said, you know, we were told that if we handle our business, we'd be in the playoff. Well, I hate to share this information with you, Peter, break it to, but you didn't handle your business. And to me, it's funny how we look at a whole season outside of 2 games. We look at a 10-game run, but we don't look at the first 2 games of the season. We look at an entire opportunity that Notre Dame had, but we don't say that they could have won one of those 2 games to start the season and been in the playoff. Because Notre Dame absolutely deserved to be in the playoff last year, but they absolutely did not deserve to be in the playoff this year. Now there are reports that Notre Dame may be freezed out of conference games in terms of playing certain conferences because they don't want Notre Dame to be in a situation based on the new memorandum of understanding that next year they're promised the playoff spot as long as they're in the top 12, regardless of what happens with any other team. So if you're Notre Dame, you're now in a position to where are you rethinking being an individual? And I just wanted you to get those rights and everything that you saw on the graphic early because I wanted you to see what Notre Dame has. Notre Dame has exclusive rights to a station unto themselves. And they get money for other sports at Notre Dame that are in the ACC comp. Now remember, Notre Dame's football team is the sport that's not affiliated with a conference. The basketball team's affiliated with a conference. The baseball team's affiliated with a conference. So it's not as if they can't be affiliated when it comes to football. They just don't want to be, and that's cool. I'm just sitting here wondering, why are you complaining that you don't get the same rights as the ACC when you're not in the ACC? And the whole conversation, guys, and listen, I don't think this is a one-person conversation. I don't think this is one individual to be at fault. I don't like the fact that Notre Dame opted out of the bowl game, although they have the right. And if you're comparing this to Florida State of 2 years ago, Florida State didn't opt out of the bowl game. There were a lot of players that were draft eligible that opted out, but the university still played. The university still went on to take on Georgia, even though it didn't work out in their favor. The university still decided we've got guys on this team that we're going to try to develop until next year, whether they hit the transfer portal or not, and we're going to move forward with something that we've earned, which was a bowl. And I think Florida State had a whole lot more reason to be upset about not being in the college football playoff than Notre Dame does this year. That aside, the Fighting Irish, I believe, tried to depend on their brand. They tried to say, because we're independent, because we've got such exclusivity in so many areas, because we are who we are, because we were in the national championship game a year ago, they thought they were going to get the benefit of the doubt. And I don't blame programs, I don't blame teams, I don't blame organizations for thinking that the benefit of the doubt is a real thing, because it is a real thing. The only problem is the benefit of the doubt has to be renewed. The same way you're supposed to renew your mind every day, you've got to renew the benefit of the doubt. If you're not showing me any performance that warrants the renewal or that warrants the opportunity for you to be seen as an opportunist and as a team that deserves to be in a specific situation, and in this case, the college football playoff, then there's nobody to be mad at but yourself. And I'll bring this up before I get into this situation. Do you know the first two teams I thought about when I thought about Notre Dame here? One was Vanderbilt and one was the Dallas Cowboys. Vanderbilt, because when Clark Lee learned that his team didn't get into the college football playoff, Clark Lee said, we have nobody to blame but ourselves. We weren't good enough. Even though he said before the committee showed its last results, hey, I think this is the playoff team. But when they were shown to be 14th in the rankings, we're not good enough. And then the next team I thought about was the Dallas Cowboys. Because the Dallas Cowboys are to the NFL what you could argue Notre Dame is to college football, a brand regardless of how well they're doing. Are the NFL playoffs probably better with the Cowboys in it? Absolutely, but they've still got to earn it. Could you argue that the playoff would have been better with Notre Dame in the playoff? You could definitely make that argument, but they had to earn it. They did not earn it. So regardless of how big of a brand this is, and I've told you this is the politics of college football, and there's a business to college football. I'm aware of that. I've said it on this show. Having the brand and having the ability to be a brand and be big in that brand does not absolve you from one thing, having to earn the right, and Notre Dame simply didn't. When we come back from the break, I'll be answering your questions regarding NFL on my Chain Gang Chatter. Back on More Move the Chains right after this. And welcome back in to Move the Chains. Before we get to answering your questions from social media via the Chain Gang Chatter, I want to take this opportunity, as always, to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for hosting Move the Chains. It's a great and a blessed opportunity, and I'm not taking it for granted. Secondly, I want to thank you, the fans, wherever you're watching on the Sports League, WHTX, Fox 54, or any of the online opportunities that you have or social media platforms. Thank you for being a supporter of this show. The best production crew in the business makes sure that I know what's supposed to be done on this show. They make your boy look good on this show, and I appreciate that. I want to make sure that they look good because they do a great job. And last but not least, you see the QR code at the bottom. If you want to take your life to another level in terms of building or leveraging your credit, or if you need a tool to help with budgeting or debt payoff, or you don't have an updated will or a living trust, scan that QR code, take a look at the protection plan, and make that decision for you and your family. Having said all of that, you know what time it is. It's time for the Chain Gang Chatter. All right, so we had some social media questions 75-80% of the time during this segment, and that's what I want to do right now. So the first question comes up is, did the Colts make a mistake trading for Sauce Gardner? And I think the real question here is, did the Colts make a mistake by presumably going all in? Because that's what this trade is about, right? The trade is about the Colts coming into the season not knowing if Shane Steichen was going to be the coach next year, not knowing who their quarterback was going to be in Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, not knowing where they were as an organization, and then boom, you beat Miami week 1, and then boom, you have one of the hottest starts in the NFL, and people are saying, man, this coach team is real. Jonathan Taylor has re-solidified himself as one of the best players and backs in the NFL simply because of health. Sometimes it's out of sight, out of mind, but we know that Jonathan Taylor, since he came into the NFL, has been a very good running back. Their defense up front on the defensive side of the football was good, was making strides, but they were lacking in the secondary. So they decided to give up a 2026 and a 2027 first-round pick for Sauce Gardner and A.D. Mitchell. Okay? They're deep at receiver. You can say that they could afford to let somebody go to get somebody with the quality of Sauce Gardner. But when you make an investment, I think it's okay to look at the investment and then look at the potential return and then look at the actual return. Now, is the season over? By no means. Sauce Gardner's hurt. Daniel Jones has now gone down with an Achilles injury, and the coach had to bring in a 44-year-old in Phillip Rivers, whom they decided to bring in. That's another conversation for another day. He's familiar with this system in their minds, and he's going to be their option because Riley Leonard is also hurt. I think you can say that they did make a mistake simply because they put this year ahead of their future without knowing what this year was going to look like. See, the best teams in the NFL, the best organizations in my estimation, know how to win now, but also know how to win in the future because they plan for both. There are some teams that don't know how to do that, and the coach didn't know what they were, and because they caught lightning in a bottle, they decided to go all in. Can they still make the playoffs? Yeah. Do they still know who their quarterback is of the future? I could make the argument that they made these moves because they weren't sold on Daniel Jones. Because if you were sold on Daniel Jones, why not ride it out? And I'm not saying don't try to get better before the trade deadline, but they mortgaged 2 first-round picks from a team that had not yet been where they're trying to get. They had been competitive, so don't twist the narrative that I'm saying that they were terrible. They haven't been terrible. They just haven't been a playoff caliber team. And they thought because they flipped the switch earlier than they thought they were going to, they went ahead and pushed all their chips to the table. It happens. In this case, it didn't happen in their benefit. All right, let's go to my last question. Should the Cleveland Browns draft a quarterback in 2026? I'm going to take you back to 3-4 weeks ago on this show where I said there was a nonsense narrative that 2026 was a quarterback-rich draft. So I'm going to combine that with this, and I'm going to say the Browns shouldn't draft a quarterback in 2026 for 2 reasons. I'll give you 2 alternatives. Shedeur Sanders, to me, has always been a franchise quarterback. And I said when the season started, for everybody who was so upset that he wasn't starting to start the season, be patient because everything will work out the way that it should for Shedeur. Now he's been named the starter for the rest of the season. So you may have a franchise quarterback in Shedeur Sanders, and that's going to continue to be evaluated moving forward. But I think he was a first-round pick coming out anyway. But let's say they don't draft a quarterback in 2026. All the quarterbacks that you thought were going to be very good in 2026 may be what you thought they were going to be in 26 a year later in 27. So then if Shedeur Sanders doesn't have a good year next year, because remember, Cleveland did a very good job in the draft this year in my estimation. They did a very good draft, did a good job in terms of Andrew Berry building this team with youth because they're producing now. From Fannin to Schlesinger to Quinshon Judkins to Dylan Sampson to Fannin. They're producing now in addition to Shedeur Sanders. So you'll now have an opportunity to give him a year under center as the starter. And if for some reason it doesn't pan out, even though I think it will, the quarterback class that you didn't think you were going to have to wait for, you may end up having to wait for, and that could be to your benefit. But like I said before, Cleveland is not in a bad situation, even though they may be a bad team right now. When we come back from the break, there's one reason people think the Chiefs are bad, and it's the quarterback. And I'll tell you that's a nonsense narrative because there's a multitude of reasons. Back with my favorite segment of the show, right after this. Welcome back in the Mood of Change, and we're not going to delay the inevitable any longer. It's time for my favorite segment of the show. It's time for my nonsense narrative. Run it. So the next man up mentality does mean something because you can't quit. So I think this is a feasible argument if people want to have it. Patrick Mahomes has regrets. And I'll just say this. This is not in defense of the Kansas City Chiefs. This is not in defense of Patrick Mahomes. This is in defense of an incomplete argument. I want a complete argument and a complete reason for what's happened to the Kansas City Chiefs. And if you say that he's regressed, as you look at these numbers here, Patrick Mahomes is still playing like a top 10 quarterback. Now, the turnovers definitely in the last game against Houston have added to his total. But I think when you're third in passing yards, you're fourth in total QBR, you're tied for fifth in touchdowns, but your team is not good, that tells me something. So when people say that Patrick Mahomes has regressed, he doesn't look like Patrick Mahomes of the first 7 seasons, which no quarterback in NFL history has looked like him. And that's fine. So I don't mind you saying Patrick Mahomes is part of the problem with the Chiefs, because he is. But all I say is add drop passes, add ineffective and shuffling of the offensive line, who was good at the beginning of the season but then hasn't been healthy. Add a defense that has been good. People have this misconception that Kansas City's defense hasn't been good. This defense has been good in terms of total yards, in terms of points per game, giving up, but they haven't been good when it comes to turning the ball over. Kansas City has also turned the ball over themselves in critical situations. Kansas City has also felt not being who they are in the past, which is why you've seen coaching errors, in my estimation, that you haven't seen in the past when it comes to Kansas City. So this has been a collective team effort. I'm not arguing that Patrick Mahomes looks the exact same as he's looked in the past. I could argue he's looked better in some cases and worse in others. That's not the argument. The argument is that he's not the only reason why the Chiefs are where they are right now, on the brink of not making the playoffs for the first time in a decade. When we come back from the break, 6 teams can win the title. Max. Back with the final segment of the show right after this. All right, welcome back to Move the Chains. It's now time for the final segment of the show. It's time for the final drive. Indiana, Ohio State, Georgia, Texas Tech, Oregon, or Texas A&M. Those are the 6 in my estimation. This is a 6-team race. Can Alabama make a run? Can Ole Miss make a run? Yeah, they can, but I don't think they will. I think those are the 6 teams that are the most complete in the college football playoff, and if the title doesn't come from one of those 6, I'm telling you I'm shocked. Hey, don't forget, you can not only catch Move the Chains right here on the Sports Leader WXTX Fox 54, you can also catch us on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's @move_the_chains. Make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment, hit the notification bell, because we are here for it. Hey, another banger for the best production crew in the business. I'm your boy, Jonathan Bam Rivers. Always remember, build every day of your life brick by brick. And don't forget to scan that QR code at the bottom to look at the protection plan and take that chance in your life to make it better for you and your family. And as always, right here on Move the Chains. Until next time, God bless.